Tonight with me, my name is Carol Potter, and I'm the Executive Director of Student Services and Special Education. And I have with me several members, administrators on our special education leadership team, and they will be helping me to present at different points throughout tonight to tell you about different aspects of what we have going in special education. Our format for tonight's town hall, as I alluded to, we're going to do a district presentation. So I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint with all of you. And then if you have questions throughout, if anything that we are discussing, you can add them to the link. It's a Google form that was sent out to you, or you possibly saw it on social media. You could have also received an email from us as well. And you can add your question there. We have Tammy DeLand joining us, our communications director, and she will be moderating and bringing questions forward to the rest of us as we go through the presentation this evening. We're scheduled for 1 hour from 4:30 to 5:30, and so we'll try to capture as much information in that time as we can. And then just a reminder too, that if you have any personal or private information specific to your child, that we won't be discussing a specific case tonight because we want to protect your child's privacy. And at any point, if there is a situation, you can always call me directly, or you can call your director or supervisor of the program or the school that your student attends as well. We're going to start out by telling you that our goal for every single student in our district, no matter where they receive their services or how they receive their services, is to graduate. And as you can see in this picture, this was a graduation in which we all got to be together in a very large room. And it was a beautiful event, and hopefully we will be back at this event very soon. But our goal for our purposes is for every single student to graduate. And if students receive special education services, that sometimes it's going to be a 4-year graduation, sometimes 5, 6, or even 7 years at the age of 21 when students are ready. They're ready to be independent. A little bit about how we are learning right now. And so we have 2 different distance opportunities going on right now. We have our Distance Learning Academy. And our Distance Learning Academy, you can think of it as a separate school from the home school that your child attended before. And so in this academy, students are receiving their general ed and their specialized services. And if you've agreed to be in the Distance Learning Academy, you have made an agreement that you will be in there all year. So this will be the school for the school for your child for the entire school year. We do things like delivery of equipment and technology in a safe manner. We might bring some hard copy papers to your house, or we might bring some specialized equipment to your house or some technology to your house, but do that in a safe manner with our PPE and our masks on. To be very careful regarding incidences of COVID. And so related services as well are all done in a virtual manner. So if your child receives speech services or nursing cares, DAPE, any paraeducator support, all of those pieces are also done in a virtual manner in our Distance Learning Academy. We'll go to our Distance Learning 2.0. And so the difference between these two is Distance Learning 2.0 is what everybody has moved to if you are not in the Distance Learning Academy. So Distance Learning 2.0 is students who have just recently moved into distance learning. You didn't start the year in distance learning. You may have started it in hybrid or fully in person. And you also receive, currently at this time, you receive your related services online or in a virtual format. Again, equipment and technology is delivered to homes in a safe manner. And the difference between the two is that students currently in Distance Learning 2.0 are scheduled at this time to return to buildings January 4th. Now, we know that things around COVID and this pandemic change very quickly. And so, depending on how things look as we get closer, we are making decisions at the district level to see how that is going to play out. Who gets to come back and when we need to return. And it's really based on the safety risks for students and staff at this time. So, Distance Learning 2.0. Hopefully that we will all get back in our buildings where we all need to be. So you may have heard that there are some students that are coming into school. And so let me tell you about who is going the speed limit of 10 miles an hour right now. And so those students are students who need initial evaluations. They're first coming in to be assessed for special education services. And then there's also some students who require a 3-year reevaluation that come in. And so all assessments that can be completed in a virtual manner right now will be, and only evaluations that cannot be completed virtually, either we don't have the assessment in a virtual format, or the student, we need to be hands-on with the student to complete the evaluation. Those students are going to be coming to school in person to receive those evaluations. Okay, I'm going to pass it on at this point to our SPED Tech integrationist. She's going to tell you a little bit about the technology support and resources that we have available for you during distance learning.
Thanks, Carol. Okay, so you'll notice on this slide we have just links that actually go directly out to our Distance Learning 2.0 technology support. And we have one for each grade level, or excuse me, for each site. So preschool through 5th grade is that first one there. And there's also a nice banner on our website, an easy way to get there. You'll see the Distance Learning DL 2.0. And for here, for example, you'll see some great resources. All of those buttons in that little Student Family Resource Center will be direct links to instructions. For example, how to log into your CSAT account, specific directions on using CSAT, joining a Google Meet, troubleshooting, etc. And then if you scroll back to the top there, there's also, if you're having any technology issues that you need support with, you can click that blue button there to submit a technology support request. So that will get routed to the appropriate people, and then they will get in touch with you to determine a plan where to bring your device to get that support, or if the support can be done over the phone or otherwise. So again, if you go back a page there, you'll see that this, like I said, this one is for our early childhood through grade 5. There's a separate link there for grades 6 through 12. And that would include our learning management system that we use for 6 through 12 is Schoology. So you'd see some more instructions in that same remote learning cheat sheet there. There's instructions for how to use Schoology, how to use Google Meet, many other great resources. So this is definitely a place that you'll want to familiarize yourself with and make sure your students have access to both of these sites. And they're on our public website, so they're very easy to find. One last resource there that I pointed out is something that's new to our district this year, and it's an amazing tool. It's called Read and Write, and this is a Chrome extension that we pushed out to all of our students and staff this year, and basically gives them access to that entire toolbar that you see across the top. And so this is just kind of a cheat sheet about what that toolbar can do for your student. So one of the main things that a lot of our students use it for and find it very helpful for is that text to speech. So when they're needing materials read out loud to them, you can highlight text on a website, in an online textbook, and you can have that text read back to you. There's also another button in there. A lot of times some of the formats of textbooks and things are not automatically in an accessible file, but there's another little screenshot reader tool that you could just highlight the text and also have it read to you. So again, a great tool. It's pushed out to all of our students, to their Chromebooks, and as well as on the iPads for the younger students. The last resource that I linked there is just some specific resources to some online reading tools that are available. And many of our teachers use these subscription-based, or some of them are just links to like free Audible. It's taking a little minute to load there. But one popular one is Epic that's on this list. Many of our elementary students use Epic to have online stories read out loud. There's also a link there to Tumble Books is another one through the public library that has great resources. as well as, like I said, there's many free Audible stories out there. And then the last one is, I think, Storyline Online. So we will make sure to get that link updated. It could just be our service here, and get those out to you with the presentation so that you have the clickable links. So I think that was it for technology. But if you have specific questions that you want addressed, feel free to reference those on that form, and we can touch back to those later on.
Okay. Thanks to many of you for writing in and asking questions about accommodations and modifications. There were quite a few questions that were sent in, and I'm very appreciative of that. So I'm going to share just a little bit about what the difference is between a modification and an accommodation. Danny, if you would go to the next slide. Thank you. And so a modification, when a student has a modification in their IEP, it's a change essentially to the rigor of an assignment or a project. And so things such as answering less questions or decreasing the level of vocabulary, decreasing the amount of writing that's asked of a student, increasing time to complete a timed test, those all change the rigor of the assignment taking place. And so we're modifying it. And so modifications are all determined by the student's IEP team. And together, general ed and special ed teachers make modifications. And so there was a question that was sent in that what happens if my student is not receiving those modifications? And what I would suggest is that you reach out to your case manager and let them know that the accommodations or modifications are being made in the general ed classroom, if that's the case. If it's in a special education classroom, we need to address either the supervisor or the director to make sure that those are happening in a special ed classroom. And I just love this picture on the left of this monarch butterfly coming out of this chrysalis, because it really is, it's turning itself into something new and something fresh. And that's what a modification does. It changes how we do the structure of the lesson or of the project. And then an accommodation. So the difference is an accommodation changes how the learning takes place. And so an example would be changes in location. So maybe instead of a student testing in their regular classroom, maybe they're going to a quiet space to take that very same test. We haven't changed the rigor, we just have changed the location. And then another example would be how information is provided and received. And so maybe a student with a hearing impairment has an FM system and the teacher's wearing an FM system. And so we're not changing the rigor of what's being taught or how the student is receiving or completing that assignment. We're just changing how they're receiving the information, how an activity is performed. So a good example is the picture on the left-hand side. And so this is a student who doesn't have great balance and is not able to ride a bike independently. But the assignment may be to ride the bike for 2 miles. So the assignment stays the same, but the accommodation is that now we're riding on a tandem side-by-side bike so that the student can still do the same amount of rigor as the other students are doing. Again, general ed and special education teachers make accommodations within their classes. These are all listed on an IEP. And if there is struggle, if you feel like those are not being met, then we want to know about that so that we can have discussion about how to best do that to meet the needs of your student.
Okay, next we're going to talk about homework help and the different options that are available at both the elementary and the secondary level. So at the elementary level, we have paraeducators that are supporting in the general education classrooms. So they are joining in with the live Google Meet sessions that there are, and they are also working individually or in small groups with students to support the homework and assignment completion. In addition, there are homework hotlines that are site specific to students with unique needs throughout the school day. So at a particular school, there may be one Google Meet code where students can log on all day if they need assistance with work completion. And then something that started on December 7th was now that there is after school support available from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock that is provided virtually to all students. And then at the secondary level, it's very similar. Again, with paraeducators, if there's a student who has either that's program support or pupil support on their IEPs, they have access to paraeducators joining in on those general education classes. Again, there are homework hotlines that are site specific that students have access to throughout the day. And something new that will be happening is that after school support will be available from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock for our secondary sites. In addition, and I'm just going to take you here to a link in a minute, building specific times are offered. So I'm just going to provide an example of that. So if you go to our district website, each school has their specific times listed. So for example, I supervise North, so we are going to go to North. So at the top under schools, I'm going to go to North. And then if you scroll down over here on the side where it says quick links, you'll see a document for academic homework support. So if you click on that, it will pull up when there is North support times available. And this is for all students. So it shows a lunch bunch group, homework help throughout the school day, as well as after school homework help. And again, this is specific to each site and it is updated for each of our schools. So if you go to any of the schools that your children attends, up at the top, you will find what support is available for their specific school site. And in addition, right now, kind of due to the COVID pandemic, we do not have paraeducators supporting in the building, or I mean, in the homes or going into homes at all. However, we do have paraeducators who are assisting with dropping off paper packets, different miscellaneous equipment, supplies, but they are not allowed to enter the student's private home. So it may be more of a driveway drop off where we're able to drop off some materials for students.
We're going to have a small discussion around grades, progress reports, and our options for credit recovery and CNC COVID no credit when it comes to your students' grades. Progress reports are sent out each time grading options come from their individual schools. And so grades are being released in elementary and secondary on the 18th and the 22nd. So you can look for your individual students' progress reports around the same time. In addition, this year, we are setting up timelines for grading options for your child. What that will look like in secondary is that grades were finished and completed yesterday. And as of today, through the 14th, parents and guardians have the option to go into their Skyward to make a determination about grade options for their students. You should have received a Sky Alert on how to do that within a two-step plan. And you'll go in and you'll decide if you want a traditional option for grading, which is A through D, or a pass option as well. You need to know that if you have a COVID no credit, it will not impact GPA, but that class will need to be redone. So when we talk about credit recovery options, please be in contact with your building counselors in regards to what those options are. In addition, advisory teachers, first period teachers, or case managers will be reaching out to talk to you about those CNC options as well. So please note that you might be getting phone calls in helping you guide your decision making or grading options and credit recovery as well.
Hi, everyone. I just want to take a minute and introduce our virtual calming and sensory area that we have up on the website. Our OTs have worked really hard in preparing this. If you look, thanks, Danny. There's two sections, one for elementary and one for secondary. You're not beholden to go just to the section that your child, where they fit. Go in and look around and find what works for your students and your families. If we hop over to the elementary site, you'll see there's things like breathing and calming, there's guided meditation, there's music, there's different sounds such as thunderstorms. They also have live zoo cameras, and they were conscientious enough to include cameras from different parts of the world. So if your child needs calming and there's a camera, but it's in Minnesota and it's dark, they can go to a camera in Australia. So that's pretty neat. Then we have the secondary side, which also offers much of the same type of things, but maybe aimed a little bit more towards that age group. There's also information on this side about COVID-19, how viruses spread, the importance of hand washing and social distancing. And then at the bottom, you'll notice there's a place that they can click on, or you can click on, saying request an appointment. And that, if you click on that, will bring you right to the schools, the secondary schools option. So if you're a North student, you can click on North and just fill out the form and somebody will get a hold of you. So right now, this is available. Case managers have the link and can send it out to families, but we are working to have this put up on the website because we think this is important for all students to have access to. So hopefully within the next week, we will have this live as a easily clickable quick link.
Okay, next we're going to talk just really quickly about some options for some virtual adaptive physical education activities that you could do at home with your students, or possibly your adaptive IA teacher may send out to you via Seesaw or through Schoology. The first one is for more elementary age students, ages 5 to 9. It's from the Y Gym, so it's there's the link is a YouTube link, and there is a variety of different exercises, approximately 2 minutes each, videos taught by a licensed instructor through the Y that could be some fun activities to do with your students at home. The junior high school one is put out by the Special Olympics organization. It's called School of Strength. That one is also geared again for high school, junior high, and is taught by certified instructors for physical fitness. And the videos again are 3 to 5 minutes long. They will tell you exactly what you need to do them, and they're things that you will find around your house. So might be very interesting for your student to do at home to increase their strength, their balance, their eye-hand coordination, those kinds of things.
During this time of the pandemic, we know that there are a lot of emotional needs for the kids and mental and health support that is needed. You've heard several times mentioned tonight that there is support available on the calming page that was shown. We talked about making an appointment with a counselor at the bottom. And just so you are aware that students that are receiving additional services through a social worker, so if your students, when we were in brick and mortar, had support by a social worker, no matter if you are in Distance Learning 2.0 or you are in Distance Learning Academy, you still have access to a school social worker, a chemical health counselor, a school counselor, or behavioral support staff. And we have teams at the different sites, support teams, that are also reaching out to kids on a daily basis. Now, if you are finding that your child is feeling isolated and maybe they're not receiving the amount of calls or the amount of connection that would be helpful for them, please do reach out to your school. to discuss what is happening with your child and how we can best support. We're happy to put support in place. We just have to know what that is, and then we can make that work. But if you are feeling, again, like they are not having enough connection to school, that we want to know about that, please do reach out to your home school and we'll get that figured out. Lastly, before we answer any other questions that you may have, I just want to talk a little bit about our Special Education Advisory Council, or SEAC. SEAC in St. Cloud, we typically meet up to 3 times in a school year. And what this group does is give input to special education items that are happening. So whether that be something new that we want to work on, like a new transition program or a new specialized program of some sort, or a new way of writing IEPs and determining which database we use. Those kinds of things are all discussed at our SEAC Advisory Council meetings. And I would love for new members and new input. It really is a great way to have your voice heard and to gather new items. You work with your students at home every single day and you're in great care of them every day. And so you may have ideas or have heard of things out in the community or have searched websites that would be really meaningful for us to know and add at school as well. And so if you are interested in giving your input, and again, it's up to 3 times a year, so not a lot of time commitment, but if you could either please call Brenda Overbo in my office, and the phone number is listed there, 320-370-8083, or you can email to, Brenda has a district email, brenda.overbo@isd742.org. To join. We'd be happy to have you connect with us. And so with that being said, we gave you a lot of information tonight on different resources. And we know that it is an insurmountable task sometimes to do all of this at home. And so we're hoping that for the time that we are in distance learning, that we can provide you the support, the ideas, the resources to keep things going. And hopefully we will be available to you as resources too if you need more help. A great question was asked earlier too about if, can I make the decision to have my child at school right now? And right now, while the entire district is in distance learning, that it's not a decision to be on campus right now, even though our neighboring districts may have some students come in. We have to make our determinations based on our district and what our numbers look like for our district and what our staff numbers look like for our district, so that we can operationalize all of the different pieces around serving students. And so at this time, we are not having students in except for that assessment piece, initial evaluations, and that reevaluation piece as well. And so now I'll look to Tammy. Is there any new questions, Tammy, that we can answer for anyone?
Yes, there are a couple. One is specific to the CO2 transition program. And this parent is concerned because time in this program is limited. Students are learning life skills, how to live alone, and job skills. The concern is that with students in distance learning and not being able to go to the job site, they'll not get the skills they need before time runs out, so to speak, because this is a special program. Could you address that a little bit?
Sure. Lori, do you want to talk a little bit about CO2?
Sure, I sure can. So even though we are in distance learning at our transition programs, we are still working on those employment and work skills, even in the home. So it's taking and learning how to demonstrate those skills in the home environment as if you were on a work site. It is not the same as being on an actual work site,
but it is a simulated activity. So we are still continuing to work on those life skills in all environments.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Another question goes back to modifications, and this parent concern is about the modification for increased time for taking tests, that she feels it's not being observed. So the question is, what does the parent do if they feel that needs to be addressed?
Mhm. Great question. And so what I would do is to reach out to the school directly and to the supervisor who is at that school and address that. Just ask the question. The extended time is not being given. How do I, what do I do to get that established for my child? And we can take care of that. If you would like to email me directly and let me know which school that is, I can certainly help you out. If you're going to give me your child's name via email, or call me as well, I'm happy to talk through that and to figure that out to make sure we have that in place.
Another question that's a little bit related to the CO2 one is for students who have physical disabilities, the comment is, this child doesn't have a physical disability, but has equally important special needs and is again concerned that they're not being met. Is that again referred to a case manager?
Another great question. And so, yes, it really doesn't matter which disability you have or the student has. If the needs are not being met, we would first identify that and connect with the case manager to address that. And if you are not seeing results with that case manager, then we would connect with the supervisor for that building in order to resolve that. So absolutely. So there are definitely doesn't have to be just a physical disability, if you will, but we know there are lots of learning differences, and that also goes back to those accommodations and modifications. Sometimes we just have to have things look differently in the classroom in order to be able to access the learning, the instruction that is being provided. And so please do start with the case manager. And if you feel like that's not getting anywhere, we can connect with the supervisor or the director of the program.
And then I think the other questions were mostly modifications that we've covered. But one question is about how are teachers reaching out to individual students? How is that happening?
Another great question. I'm going to ask either Brenda Blackmore or Kate Bukowski if you want to talk a little bit about what kinds of things are happening to reach out to students.
Okay, Kate. I'll start, Kate, and you can answer as you need to. In our programs, we meet with our students daily. So students are scheduled in, they meet with their teachers and their support staff. If the question is, how are we reaching out to our students? If we notice students aren't getting online, or they get online and we lose them quickly, we reach out via Google Text, just to remind students that we are looking for them. The other thing we have noticed is the more we can engage our students in the school day is really important for students. So they need to feel that they're cared about and that they are still part of a school program. So we do provide different activities throughout our week to help students be a part of the school day. We know this is difficult for our students, and we would really, we look for the day when we can have them with us in front of us again.
Again, Brenda and I are very specific in our specialized programs, and we do very similar to Brenda. But I would say if you look at across the board, across the district, it's there's a lot of people reaching out to kids in a lot of different ways. And so if a student has a class period with their case manager, they're going to see that student and that they're going to reach out to those students in their classes. At the high school, that often looks like a co-taught classroom or a transition class. At the sometimes a resource class in language arts or math. At the elementary class situation, at the elementary level, it could be in a social studies class, in a speech time, or in co-taught again, or in a resource class that way. If you have a case manager who doesn't have the kids on their caseload in their classes, there's a lot of coordination across teams to where they're communicating. So behind the scenes, you have teachers communicating with one another to say, are you, how is so-and-so doing, checking in that way. And a lot of times it's determined if that student's struggling, they will reach out and say, hey, come meet with me on my office hours. Each teacher has office hours on Fridays, as well as throughout the course of the week. And so if you have a case manager who's not seeing their child, their specific students in the class, there's still a lot of collaboration and communication behind the scenes. And if you're not hearing from them and you feel that there's concerns, again, I think reach out. There's a lot of moving parts and people are really working hard to make sure each student is getting their needs met. And so those would be some different ways that in mainstream schools as well, that case managers are working to ensure students' needs are being met.
Mm-hmm. Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like at a general ed site? Is there anything different that you would add than what Kate and Brenda added already?
No, I think it's very similar to what Kate and Brenda were saying. Just at the elementary level, that may look like reaching out on Seesaw through messaging the students on Seesaw, messaging the families on Seesaw. It may be through emails, phone calls, any way we can kind of engage the family. So at the secondary level, that may look like a lot of times we're messaging the students individually on Schoology. We may also be emailing the parents. We may be sending them video links through Google Meet. And so very similar to what Kate and Brenda said with collaborating with other teachers, but in addition, we have that element of sending messages on CSAT and Schoology.
Great. Thanks, Danny. Okay, Tammy, any other questions?
We have another one that just popped in.
Great.
What are the expectations for teachers? And I believe the intent here is gen ed teachers. What are the expectations for teachers to read IEPs and then implement those accommodations and modifications?
Excellent question. And I see Beth is all ready to answer this. Beth, you want to take that one?
Sure, I'm glad to. I think that there's a collaboration always going on between the case managers and the general education teachers. That's a team that's working together to really understand and meet the needs of the student. And so it's our practice that the case manager reaches out to all of those teachers to talk about the student and what the student's needs are and what is indicated on the IEP. And the teachers also always have access to that information through our student information system so that they can get a summary of the IEP and a quick glance of what the expectations are as far as modifications go. So that's an ongoing collaboration that's happening on a day-to-day basis. Kate and Brenda were just kind of alluding to it as well, that there's a lot of conversations just happening. We don't have hallways right now to have them. They're happening over text message and email on how to best serve the kids.
And that's the last live question that we have tonight.
Okay, I just want to wrap up by saying thank you again so much for connecting with us tonight and being a part of our special education town hall meeting. Again, if any of you would like to join our Special Education Advisory Council to give input on all of these kinds of things that we talked tonight about, we would love to have you. And please do think about that. It's not a whole lot of time commitment, but we certainly would love to hear from you and meet you and have some new faces join us. So on behalf of all special education, thank you again and have a good night. It looks like Tammy has one more item to share. Tammy, you go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to mention that once we have the recording, we can post the recording and the presentation on the website. So if you want to review what you heard tonight, or if you know someone missed tonight, you'll be able to find it on the website.
Oh, terrific. Okay. Thanks again, everyone, and you have yourself a great night.